Hey everybody, it's the Mad Master here, and this will be the video I've been talking about for a while. I don't know if it's going to be that grand or great or different than any of my other rants on here, but I just wanted to boil down these things to 5 questions that I have. And these 5 questions are unanswered questions about COVID-19. So, in doing the research that I have, there's been a lot of contention with regards to the virus and, scientific disagreement. So despite people saying, trust the experts, there's always all these experts from all these different universities that are disagreeing with how things should have been handled, or how things are being handled. So the illusion of being unanimous is, definitely false. I mean, it's not real. People do have disagreements and arguments and it's been politicized. This video isn't meant to espouse a political belief or any such thing. It's just basic questions. Now, I'm not an epidemiologist or a biologist, and I have no background in any kind of medical education. I think I got a B in high school biology, and it was sophomore year of high school. That's like one of the last biology classes I've taken. I've done far more research on sociology and philosophy and politics and political science than anything to do with biology. So, and I know some of biology from having to read about conditions that I unfortunately have encountered in my life and stuff. So that's some of biology, virology, how you pronounce it, that I have, as far as what I've read, has been because of such things, so having to research different things. But in regards to this virus, COVID-19, I'm just going to say it straight out in the video, I have some unanswered questions. And it's not like these questions are even in regards to that's anything unreasonable, because I think we all have these questions. I don't think you have to be on the left or the right or libertarian or socialist or whatever to oppose asking these questions. Now, there are people that will think that these are slanted questions because they give into these different ideas that people are perpetuating. And I will admit that some of these questions might seem, to espouse more of a right-wing position. I'm on the left, so I just want to say, I voted for Bernie Sanders. I voted for Ralph Nader in 2000. I voted for John Kerry in 2004. I voted for Obama in 2008, but I almost voted for Ron Paul, so I guess that gives you a little bit of a nuance there. I didn't vote for Hillary. I voted for Jill Stein. So you can kind of see I'm coming from a dissident, ostensibly left position. And I'm not the only one on the left that has questions about this. I think Jimmy Dore has talked about this. Some of the, this has kind of been more of it's not a very establishment position to have as far as having these kinds of questions. Jimmy Dore or Kyle Kulinski have both, questioned some of these things that have been said about the virus and stuff. So I'm not alone. Now, I think increasingly down the road, I will be more, I think my position or my questions will be more respected. I don't think the left, I'll just give you an example. So 9/11, and I'm not comparing this to 9/11 at all. This ostensibly killed a lot more people. 9/11, everybody was on board. I mean, I wasn't. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I wasn't on board with all the stuff that Bush was doing and stuff. But everybody was like, support support everything we're doing as a government in the United States. Everybody from I think maybe Noam Chomsky or some other people were like, oh, this doesn't look good. They were sounding the alarm. Obviously, it's conspiracy theorists were too. But still. But then it took the Iraq War and some other stuff, the Patriot Act, for the left to really wake up. So I predict, like, some of this stuff, if the questions to my answers are more nefarious than they could be, then I'm not saying that they are nefarious. I'm not saying the answers to my questions are nefarious. I'm just saying if they happen to be nefarious, then a lot more of the left will come on board with some of these ideas about questioning whether or not some of these and I'm not talking to talk about masks or hydroxychloroquine. I don't give a shit about either one of those two. It's like, I don't care about wearing a mask one way or the other. I think we're overinflating some of these arguments are pretty petty and stupid from both sides. I mean, I watch this guy, you can look him up, he's called Z-Dog on YouTube. He's a real doctor, and he has talked about, like, how silly, some of these arguments have been, how politicized this has become is just ridiculous. We should not politicize what's going on. Now, I don't care about that stuff, and I don't care about hydroxychloroquine. If it works, I mean, the retracted study about it was pretty messed up, and it definitely feeds into the conspiracy culture as well as, Trump people. But, I mean, they're finding out a lot of different treatments now. There's even an announcement about this thing that University of Jerusalem and I think it's Mount Sinai Hospital have done this study of this cholesterol drug that might actually downgrade COVID to a common cold level of virus. So, I mean, who knows? I predict, I'm going to make a prediction in this video. I hope I'm right. I pray I'm right. And if you're watching this video, just, if you can imagine in your mind that this is correct, and just fantasize about this in your mind as much as possible. Because I sort of believe in some of that stuff. By November, December, we're going to be in a way different position than we are now with this stuff. It's going to be night and day. And people are going to they'll start relaxing a lot more of this stuff because the treatments are going to be so good. There could be a vaccine, which, I'm mixed on a rushed vaccine. And, that just feeds the conspiracy culture, like I've said. And I do watch some of the conspiracy stuff, like I watch Corbett Report. I watch MedCram, I watch Z-Dog, I watch Corbett Report. That's about it lately. So I'm watching 2 doctors and 1 conspiracy theorist. But it's fine because I get this balanced thing about it, you look into the civil... I try to take everything with a grain of salt, I mean, MedCram and Z-Dog are ostensibly establishment, but with a twist because, the MedCram guys just like, let's get to the bottom of this instead of politicizing it. Same with Z-Dog. He's actually attacking politicization of it. So let's just say this. So with all that out of the way, this video is not meant to have any kind of political, ostensibly political leaning. And it's not meant to be any kind of medical advice or anything like that. This is just honest questions I have from my heart that I have about the virus that I haven't had explained to me. If someone explains a very benevolent and benign answer to some of these questions, I'll probably be like, oh, wait, that makes sense. Okay. Oh, I wasn't thinking about that, So with that said, let's start. So number 1, okay, my first unanswered question. Why are the deaths being counted the way they are? And there's like these popular memes right now from on a lot of the right wing. Even me and my friend were talking about it. He's, and he's pretty, him and his wife are pretty aggressive about this whole thing as far as on, the more, I don't know if I call it the left. I guess we'll call it, for the sake of this video, I'm going to call it right-left, and given this paradigm, just for this video, because the left is basically the more fearful side about the virus itself. The right is more fearful about the economy. So he's more from the left, I guess he was, or the left, whatever. So But even he said, oh yeah, my friend shared this meme about died skydiving, the death was blamed on COVID-19. So it's an exaggeration of a real thing. And I have read some anecdotal reports about them actually, in a couple occasions, reporting these deaths that were, there have been a few. I thought it was a joke, okay? I thought it was a joke. Like, there's no way they could have counted cases. No. Or deaths like that. But there's been a couple of times where there's been like one or two things I've read where they were disputing this death because they said it was because of this and this. So now with that said, I think for the most part, that meme and that right-wing talking point is an exaggeration of a real phenomenon. And I'll tell you why. So in prior pandemics, and even with the yearly flu, when someone dies with a pre-existing condition and they get the flu or they get a cold or something else, some secondary, now I'm remembering even more about this, secondary disease or something like that. That disease is not blamed for their death. It's their pre-existing condition that's blamed for their death that's exacerbated by something else. And that's what the death certificates used to say about stuff. So with COVID-19, it seems like they're saying that it's because of COVID-19, even if and this is on the CDC website. Dr. Birx even said it in, I think it was April. I'd have to look up the exact date. I saw the press conference, so it wasn't April because I was watching those every day for a while. So why are they doing that? I don't know. I just want an answer to why. And, I definitely understand how they want to count excess deaths, in a certain period of time that are being caused by something, or this is a pretty bad pandemic and everything. Maybe they're just trying to tie it all in. But still, it's just like, it's a little bit disingenuous for people to use that as a political point from both sides. So, like, they're just counting everything as COVID, or you must be scared of the virus all the time. It kills so many people. Who cares how they're counting it? So many people, more people died than they said. So you have these polarized sides that are making this into a political issue. But I just want to know why. That's all. So I don't think I can be blamed for questioning or wondering how these metrics are counted, right? And then there's the confusing ways of counting cases. So like the Atlantic recently did a piece in June about how some states are counting people's testing positive on antibody tests, meaning they had the virus, as active cases. And luckily, a lot of places have been called out for doing this. But why would they do this? What is the purpose of doing that? And even the Atlantic was like putting their hands up in the air. What? Why? And they were trying to kind of like sort of insist it was sort of benevolence, the intention, but still calling it into question. They tried to like really teeter on the edge in that article because it's like, obviously they're trying to make this into a big deal and they don't want to seem like some, downplaying the virus. So they have to like use a little weasel words in the article about this whole subject. But it was good for them to call attention to that because the fact of the matter is that the Atlantic is a very liberal publication, and I like the Atlantic a lot for one of those older publications like that, ostensibly establishment liberal publications. They're one of the better ones. There's a lot of exposés and features that I like on there. I mean, Rolling Stone used to have that kind of credibility until like recent years when they had some other stuff. Matt Taibbi is still pretty good, but there's a lot of stuff. But even Andrew Cuomo questioned some of the way they're counting cases. So there was this thing that came out, Texas Commissioner's Court from Collins County, Texas, in May, that they were discussing how the CDC wanted them to count probable cases. And there was some really messed up stuff in the video. It was like, they're going to, I mean, I don't know if it was just them, these people meeting in a room debating how they're going to count it, but if they're counting these probable cases as, how do they measure, this is a sub question, how do they measure probable cases? if they're actually counting probable cases as someone just has a flu type symptoms, and then they don't even, let's say they don't even test them for the flu. And it gets very confusing. And I just want to know why they're doing that. Why? Okay, that's question number 2. And my third question, why all the loaded language and Orwellian hyperbole? And this is where I'm going to show a few images, and I'll let you know when they come up. So hopefully there won't be any copyright issues with this video, but whatever. So they talk about the new normal, and then there's all this stuff. Nothing will ever be the same again. Even the articles in like March and April that were being distributed by such things as Yahoo News, they were saying like handshakes will not be a thing anymore after this, and all this crazy nonsense talk. And it just seems a bit strange in light of the fact that after the 1918 Spanish flu, which this pandemic will never get to that level, and it has not yet. It is a lot of people, but 50 million people or whatever, I think it was millions of people that died of that. This will not happen with this virus. It's just not going. It's just the trends are not going to that. The trends of the deaths, even uncounted deaths, if you believe in that. And obviously, I question that too. Some of these states miscounting deaths as undercounting. For sure, there could be undercounting going on as well. It doesn't mean I'm all of a sudden a left-winger by saying that, or all of a sudden right-winger by saying, why are they counting cases this way? I just have questions, okay? So, as you can see from this image, check this out. There are people playing masked ball games in, early 1919. And then later, they decided masks were not needed any longer, and they played the World Series without masks, So these articles that have this language that catastrophize the virus as in it's going to change everything. People are going to be wearing masks for 10 years down the road and shit like that. It's just, it's just ridiculous. I question why. It just seems strange that the current pandemic's media coverage would use this kind of language that would imply permanency. We have these stupid op-eds, that say, theorizing that people may never handshake again, or that social distancing is permanent. What a load of rubbish. It's little wonder that people believe in conspiracy theories when they see this kind of stuff. Because it's like the media is all in lockstep with this kind of language and these kind of articles. It's like, it must be the new world order. What is a person to believe when they see all this stuff all together? It's ridiculous, this narrative. Even Bill Maher's called this stuff out. Thankfully, someone on the left has called some of this stuff out, because even though, he obviously believes a lot of the hype about the virus, as, I believe in a lot of it too, or hysteria, or whatever you want to call it. But the fact of the matter is, some of this stuff is so stupid. Is it clickbait? Is it for money? Is it just because this narrative they're trying to take it seriously, they think it's going to, money, or I don't know. But this is a question I have. Why? I don't get the ideological, psychological, or sociological reasons for pushing such a narrative, especially when there were other pandemics that did not result in any permanent change in social norms like that, like they were suggesting. And then it's number 4. Why all the confusing and seemingly changing guidelines? I've seen the studies that masks stop droplets. Some of the guidelines have been confusing and convoluted. And for example, and I've already talked about some of this, but there was a CNN report about this restaurant in China that showed how people in a restaurant could get infected through the air system just sitting down. Yet, like my work and other jobs I've heard about and other places I've heard about, restaurants, for example, other restaurants here, they'll say you have to wear a mask standing up, and then when you're sitting down and eating, you don't have to wear a mask. Well, what's the point? Just lock down everything, right? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's confusing to your average person. It's like the whole thing about nobody in your household, or If you're not a member of someone else's household, you have to wear a mask. It's like, oh, so does that mean my boyfriend that I've been, or girlfriend or whatever, that I've been seeing for 3 years, but we haven't moved in together yet, has to wear a mask when we're hanging out now for 6 months or whatever, however long this lasts? It's just so stupid. I mean, it's so confusing. You know, it's not stupid. The guidelines are meant to be for good, but it gets really stupid and convoluted and confusing. So now I get to number 5, which that kind of ties in. Well, they all tie together. Why the quickly changing narrative in general? Sub-question: can changing science really explain this type of incompetency and confusion? You know, for example, the World Health Organization, first there was a tweet. It was a tweet, I remember. No human-to-human transmission found. They're listening to all these things China are saying, and then there's might be a cover-up. And then Fauci's whole thing, March 20th, with the mask thing. And at first, with the Fauci thing, I think I had seen that clip before, a part of it. But if you watch the whole clip, it was like, I think it was 2020. I mean, not the year 2020, the show 2020, or, one of those Nightline or whatever. If you watch the whole clip, he seems kind of almost like smug. Like, masks, it's not like, there's no proof that masks are needed at this time. He could have said that and left it at that. But it's just the way he says it. And, these quickly changing narratives, like the doctors that signed on to the petition that let people protest, when some of these same people, the politicians, were calling people murderers and grandma killers a month or two before for doing the anti-lockdown protests. And it's not like the anti-lockdown protests were all legitimate. I'm not saying that, or everybody in there was legitimate. But it's hypocritical. Let's just call it what it is. It's hypocritical to assume a certain class of person or type of person is exempt from these rules that you just apply to this other class of people, wholeheartedly and hardcore. So these different guidelines. So in changing narrative. And then, there's things like a ton of stuff about that is that there's been this controversy about asymptomatic carriers for a while. So the way that it went before, though, was that, yeah, there's a lot of asymptomatic carriers, blah, blah, blah. You should wear a mask. Some people are saying this, blah, blah, blah. Don't kill grandma. You're killing grandma if you meet in public. That's been going on at least 2 or 3, maybe 4 months, but at least 3 months. So you go a little earlier than that, you go a little later than that. And there's the Stanford study, which studied about, it's a serology test of people in California, how many people have had virus and have antibodies. So you get on these blogs like Vox or, Huffington Post, those types of blogs. And all of a sudden the Stanford study is attacked because the JetBlue CEO gave a bunch of money to the study or Stanford in general over the past few years. And then you're like, oh, well, and they said it was bad methodology and all this stuff. And you look in the comment sections of these articles or these Twitter, these Twitter battles that are going on about it. As this person from the left, quote unquote, attacking the study, attacking the people, is like, we all got to be scared. It's not true. There's not that many asymptomatic carriers of the virus. It's all a lie. And we're all going to die. So it's like this hysteria about the number of asymptomatic people. Another study comes out from Germany, not saying the exact number of people asymptomatic, but the general premise is there's a whole fuckload, pardon my French, of asymptomatic carriers well beyond anybody ever envisioned. All these studies come out, it could vary from, I've seen Penn State came out with a study that said 80 times as many people carried the virus as initially thought. The CDC just said 10 times or 20 times. It's the fact of the matter is that there have been a huge number of people that have already had the virus and didn't even know it. And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't mean, and both sides will use it as a political football. Like, the left, quote unquote, will use it as like, that's why we gotta wear masks, because we don't know, because most times it's mild. And then the right will be like, it's mild. Open the country up now. Most people won't even get that bad. So we have these two sides at war with one piece of information. And within that piece of information are these political battles, just like the whole should we reopen the schools? And it's just like, I just have to facepalm. It's just so ridiculous. Let's just have a conversation about this. It's just so silly. I recommend Z-Dog's videos, though. Check it out as far as some of these debates go. So anyways, that's one thing. And then there was these scientists that were called names. Like, I think it was Michael Levitt. He was just like, people were just out for his throat about the stuff he said about lockdowns, or anybody that had any opinion that was a little bit different than the norm at the time about the mitigation for strategies for this, or the severity, talking about the severity. But months later, we know that some of these people were right, and they keep getting proven right. Just like there was something on, I would check out there was one channel I forgot to mention that I do watch, Unheard, and they talked to some controversial people, including the Mr. Ferguson himself one time too. But so Unheard, they've had people over the months about, talking about this stuff and talking like, well, it could have already been through this population. Number of asymptomatics could be way higher. And, these people were attacked. They were mocked. They were shunned. I've even heard I don't know if this is exactly what happened, but I've heard about even some YouTube, videos flagged or pulled for some of this stuff. And these are legitimate people. They're not David Icke, style 5G crazy reptilian, science, faux scientists on this, talking about this on these channels. They're actual Oxford, Stanford, like I said, Penn State did a study about the asymptomatics. But yet, we're gonna mock them. We're gonna tell people that not to listen to these people because they're wrong. They're attacked on Twitter at downplaying the virus and stuff. There's even a guy now that I'm following on Twitter. It's Francois Ballou, Ballous, and he's I think he's French or Swiss. He is a scientist. He's studying the genome of COVID-19, and he's getting called all sorts of names by people here and there because he's scientific about the severity, scientific about whether or not we should open schools, but he's not injecting politics in it. So all of a sudden, he's some right-wing grandma wannabe killer, murderer, like I talked about in the video. Even though he's studying the fucking genome, he's part of this team that's actually fighting this shit. He's not anti-vax, but yet he's attacked. Why? Why? That's my question. Why? That's a sub-question of number 5, but it is why. I just want to know. So, in conclusion, this whole video is just about these unanswered questions I have that these people, it seems like, I think, so like I said in the beginning of the video, I think this thing is gonna play out. The debates will continue. The severity eventually will dissipate. We'll have spikes for a while, maybe 2 months. I would say 2 months. This is just my prediction. I don't know shit, okay? I've just been reading. I've been down this rabbit hole for 3 or 4 months now. So I don't know. Sunetra Gupta and some other people, talked about what I'm about to say. So I think it'll go through, and I'm not going to use Trump's term for it, wash through, but I mean, he might be partly right. He was partly right about the sun in a certain way. So, I mean, there's little grains of truth with what he says, even though a lot of it's bullshit. But, we will get through this. I'd say by the end of the year, we'll be pretty well through it. And that's just because I don't know if it's optimism or just so many studies are being done all at once, and we're figuring out this stuff out in record time. So I believe we will be through a lot of this, and it will end. But what is the aftermath? What is the aftermath of freedom of speech? We're going to be talking about the civil liberties, implications of all this stuff, And I happen to agree with Sweden and South Korea, having a mixture of the two. I think we should test on a higher scale. And I've been called an evil Bill Gates acolyte myself on like Facebook or Twitter for saying that we should be like South Korea with the testing and tracing. Well, they weren't saying exactly that, but they were kind of saying that I'm just like, giving into that side. When when you watch these videos, and I'm a COVIDiot, right? So, anyways, in conclusion, please share and like this video. If you have these answers to these questions, I'm all ears, regardless of how I feel about the answers, because the answers could be like, duh, of course, But that's all I got to say, and I hope to see you in more videos soon.